Strip to your undergarments, then dance. The American sergeant's voice cuts through frozen air. 47 German women stand in a wooden barracks somewhere in Belgium. January 1945. The walls are thin, the floor is ice. And now this. Hertha, 22, former Luftwaffe signals operator, feels her stomach drop. Beside her, Brigitte, 31, army nurse from Hamburg, grabs her wrist. Hard. Behind them, Anneliese, 19, starts crying before anyone moves. But here's what doesn't make sense. The sergeant isn't looking at them. He's looking at something in the corner, a wooden box. He walks toward it, opens the lid, and pulls out a gramophone. The needle catches light. Brass horn gleams. Sie werden uns benutzen. Das tun alle Sieger. They will use us. All victors do. That's what the training said. That's what the posters screamed. That's what every woman in this room expects. Only 400 German women are prisoners in American custody right now. 400 out of 500,000 total POWs. This barracks holds 47 of them, and every single one is waiting for the worst. Hertha's fingers fumble at her buttons. The wool scratches as it falls. Cold bites her bare arms. Brigitte's breath fogs the air between them. Anneliese hasn't stopped shaking since they arrived. The sergeant places a record on the gramophone. Black vinyl, label worn. He doesn't announce what's coming. He doesn't explain. He just drops the needle. Swing music fills the barracks. Trumpets, saxophones. A rhythm that belongs in a dance hall, not a prison camp. The sound bounces off wooden walls, mixes with frozen breath, fills the space where fear should be. And then the sergeant does something wrong. He steps back, puts his hands behind his back, clasps them, and he waits. He doesn't move toward them, doesn't reach for anyone, doesn't even look directly at the women standing half-clothed in the cold. Brigitte whispers to Hertha, "What's happening?" Hertha has no answer. The music plays on. Glenn Miller, maybe? American swing? Bright and absurd against the terror in her chest. Warum bewegt sich nicht? Why isn't he moving? Hertha's mind races. This doesn't match the script. The propaganda never mentioned music, never mentioned waiting, never mentioned sergeants who won't meet your eyes. The barracks door opens. A woman walks in. American uniform. Red Cross armband. She's holding a clipboard and a magnifying glass. And she's the one who speaks next. Medical inspection. I'll need you to stay still. The American nurse's voice is flat, professional. She walks past the sergeant without looking at him. Clipboard tucked under arm. Magnifying glass catching barracks light. Her name is stitched on her uniform, C. Whitmore. She's maybe 28. Face unreadable. No smile. No threat either. Hertha's heart is still slamming against her ribs, but something shifts. The nurse isn't looking at their bodies. She's looking at their heads, their scalps. Die Musik. Warum Musik? The music. Why music? Brigitte's whisper cuts through the trumpets. No answer comes. Here's a number that explains everything. Typhus killed 17,000 people in Bergen-Belsen. Lice carry typhus. American protocol is absolute. Strip inspection within 24 hours of capture. No exceptions, not even for women. Nurse Whitmore holds up the magnifying glass. Lice check first, then scabies, then wounds. Anneliese stops crying. The word lice hangs in the air. Not assault, not violation. Lice. Medical terminology. Clinical language. The gramophone crackles between songs. Static fills the pause. Then another swing tune begins. Upbeat. Almost mocking the tension in the room. Private Vogt, 20, medical assistant, enters behind the nurse. Young, blonde. He carries a clipboard and won't look up. His boots crunch on frozen floor planks. He stands near the door like he'd rather be anywhere else. Brigitte leans toward Hertha again. Why does he look ashamed? The question lands. Hertha notices it now, too. Vogt's jaw is tight. His eyes stay on the clipboard. He's not enjoying this. He looks like he wants to disappear. Nurse Whitmore approaches the first woman in line, magnifying glass raised. Head forward, please. The woman complies. Cold metal touches her scalp. The nurse parts hair with a wooden stick, examines section by section, writes something down, moves to the next woman. Systematic. 4.2 minutes per POW. That's the protocol. Herta counted. 4 minutes, 12 seconds for the first inspection, almost exactly regulation. Hat nicht einmal, hat nicht... He didn't even... The thought won't complete. Brigitte's voice trails off as she watches Private Vogt, still staring at his clipboard. He's seen nothing. Touched no one. The swing music plays on, brass and rhythm filling space where screams were supposed to be. Herta's turn approaches. She watches the nurse's technique, professional movements, gloved hands, clinical distance. But here's the question no one has answered yet. Why does a medical inspection require dancing? Nurse Whitmore finishes another woman and turns toward Herta. Cold metal touches Herta's scalp. She flinches. Can't help it. Nurse Whitmore doesn't react, just parts another section of hair with the wooden stick. Examines, moves on. The magnifying glass catches light each time she tilts it. Behind her, the gramophone switches tracks. Something slower now. Still swing, but mellower. The static between songs sounds like breathing. Hat mich nicht einmal angesehen. Warum? He didn't even look at me. Why? The question burns in Herta's mind as Privat Vogt scribbles on his clipboard near the door. His handwriting is too fast to be accurate. He's writing to avoid seeing. 4.2 minutes. That's what the inspection takes. Herta knows because she counts her heartbeats. 218 beats. Then Nurse Whitmore steps back. Clean, no lice. Minor. Scalp abrasion left side. Noted. Vogt writes without looking up. Noted. Herta moves aside. Brigitte steps forward. Same process. Scalp examination. Scabies check on arms and legs. The nurse's gloved hands are efficient but never linger. Clinical as a factory inspection. The smell hits Herta now. Antiseptic. Sharp and chemical. Mixed with the gramophone's dusty warmth and the frozen wood of the walls. 3 scents that shouldn't exist together. Annalisa is still shaking when her turn comes. 19 years old. Younger than anyone should be in a place like this. Her lips are blue from cold. Nurse Whitmore pauses, looks at her, really looks. You're hypothermic. Not a question. A diagnosis. She turns to Vogt. Blanket, now. The private disappears, returns with wool, gray military issue. He drapes it over Annalisa's shoulders without touching her skin. His hands are shaking almost as much as hers. Das ist nicht das, was sie uns gesagt haben. This isn't what they told us. The thought spreads through the room. Herta sees it in Brigitte's eyes, in the faces of women waiting in line, confusion replacing terror. The inspection continues. 31 women examined, 16 with lice. Those 16 are marked for delousing treatment. The others are marked clean, but the dancing hasn't happened yet. Nurse Whitmore finishes the last woman in line, closes her clipboard, looks at the gramophone still playing in the corner. Then she looks at the 47 women standing in undergarments in a frozen Belgian barracks. Now I need you to move. Brigitte's voice cracks. What? The nurse's answer makes no sense at all. Movement reveals what inspection cannot. Move. Arms above your head. Swing them. Now march in place. Nurse Whitmore's instructions are precise, not a request. Medical protocol delivered like military orders. Herta raises her arms, feels the cold bite deeper, starts swinging. Left, right, left. The motion feels absurd. 47 women in undergarments, arms overhead, marching to swing music in a frozen barracks. But here's what Herta notices. She's getting warmer. Bewegung zeigt, was die Inspektion nicht kann. Movement reveals what inspection cannot. The nurse's words repeat in Herta's head as her body temperature rises. Blood flows faster, skin flushes, and something else happens. Brigitte gasps, points at the woman beside her. There, look! Tiny black specks, moving on the woman's shoulder, lice, Invisible during the scalp check, now visible because body heat activated them, made them crawl toward the surface. Body lice become visible after 90 seconds of elevated temperature. Dancing raises core temperature 1.2 degrees Celsius in 60 seconds. The math is brutal. The method is efficient. Nurse Whitmore moves through the marching women, magnifying glass ready. She spots 7 more infestations the initial inspection missed, marks them for treatment. The gramophone plays on. Benny, Goodman now, bright clarinets over steady rhythm. Es war nie, sie wollten nie. It was never, they never wanted. Annaliese's thought doesn't finish. She's wrapped in her blanket, watching the others march. Her blue lips are turning pink. The hypothermia is fading. Private Vogt still won't look up, but his shoulders have relaxed. He's not afraid of being caught looking. He's ashamed of what these women expected, of what his uniform represented in their minds. Herta's arms burn from the movement. Sweat forms on her forehead despite the cold. The absurdity hits her in waves. She's dancing, in undergarments, for American soldiers, but not for their entertainment, for her own survival. The propaganda never mentioned this, never mentioned medical protocols designed to save lives, never mentioned nurses with clipboards instead of soldiers with appetites. Nurse Whitmore completes her secondary inspection. 23 confirmed lice cases total, 24 clean. You can stop now. The marching ceases. Heavy breathing fills the barracks. 47 women stand sweating in freezing air, confused beyond language. Brigitte turns to Herta, voice barely a whisper. They weren't going to hurt us. Not a question. A realization. And then Nurse Whitmore says something that breaks the silence completely. Get dressed. Clean uniforms are coming. No one moves, because that sentence doesn't belong in this reality. Die Amerikaners in Tira. The Americans are animals. That poster hung in every training facility, every barracks, every corridor where German women learned to fear capture. Herta remembers it now, the illustrations, American soldiers with exaggerated features, hands like claws, eyes like predators. The message underneath, death before surrender. She looks at Private Vogt, 20 years old, blonde, shaking hands, won't meet anyone's eyes because he's embarrassed for them, for what they expected. Wenn das eine Lüge war, was war noch gelogen? If this was a lie, what else was a lie? The question cracks something open. 94% of German military personnel received anti-American propaganda training, average exposure 200 hours. 200 hours of being taught exactly what would happen upon capture. None of it mentioned nurses, magnifying glasses, clean uniforms. Brigitte sits on a wooden bench. Her hands are trembling, not from cold anymore, from something deeper. I believed them, she whispers. Herta sits beside her. The gramophone has stopped. Needle scratching, empty vinyl. The static sounds like white noise, like the sound between radio stations, like nothing. Anneliese pulls the blanket tighter. She was 19 when she joined, youngest in the Signals Corps. She believed every word they told her. Wir haben uns darauf vorbereitet zu sterben, statt gefangen genommen zu werden. We prepared to die rather than be captured. The confession spills out of her without warning. Private Vogt looks up for the first time, just for a second. His eyes meet Annaliese's. There's no predator there, just a kid in a uniform who doesn't want to be here any more than she does. The barracks door opens. Cold air rushes in. A woman enters. Different uniform. Same Red Cross armband. She's older than Nurse Whitmore, maybe 40. Gray threading through brown hair. She carries a stack of fabric, olive drab, American military issue. Clean uniforms, she announces. 2 sets each. Herta stares. 2 sets. The German Army issued 1 uniform per year, if supplies allowed, if you were lucky. But here's the thing that breaks her. It's not the uniforms. It's not the medical inspection. It's not even the dancing. It's that no one has touched them. No one has threatened them. No one has done anything the propaganda promised. The older nurse starts distributing uniforms. Brigitte takes hers with hands that won't stop shaking. Why? Brigitte asks. The nurse pauses, looks at her like the question is strange. Because you're prisoners, not enemies. Silence swallows the barracks whole. I taught girls to expect rape. The voice comes from the corner. Everyone turns. A woman stands apart from the group. She hasn't moved since the inspection ended. Her name is Gisela, 26, former BDM leader, Bund Deutscher Mädel, League of German Girls, 4.5 million members by 1944. Mandatory meetings, mandatory training, mandatory fear. Ich habe ihnen beigebracht, ihre eigenen Körper zu fürchten. I taught them to fear their own bodies. Gisela's voice cracks. She's not looking at anyone. Her eyes are fixed on the gramophone, the silent brass horn. Anneliese freezes. Recognition floods her face. I know you. Barely a whisper. You came to our school. Gisela doesn't deny it. I told you what Americans would do, what Russians would do, what any enemy would do if they captured German women. The barracks goes silent. Even the wind outside seems to pause. Private Vogt stops writing. His pencil hovers over the clipboard. He's listening now. Can't help it. Ich habe mich selbst angelogen, und dann habe ich euch angelogen. I lied to myself. And then I lied to you. Gisela's confession spills out like blood from a wound. Brigitte speaks first. You believed it too. Not an accusation, an observation. Gisela finally looks at them. Her eyes are wet. I believed it so completely I never questioned it. 200 hours of training, films, posters, lectures, and I taught it all without hesitation. Here's the statistic that cuts deepest. BDM leaders gave an average of 47 presentations on Allied capture. Fear-based content in every single one. Gisela gave 53. The older nurse, the one distributing uniforms, pauses near Gisela, holds out olive drab fabric. You get 2 sets as well. Gisela stares at the uniform. American issue, clean, warm, given freely to a woman who spent years teaching others to fear. Exactly this. Her hands shake as she takes it. Warum seid ihr so? Why are you like this? The question escapes before she can stop it. The nurse doesn't answer, just moves to the next woman in line. But Private Vogt speaks, first words he said since entering. Because it's what's right. 4 words, no explanation. He goes back to his clipboard. Gisela holds the uniform against her chest. The fabric smells like soap, like civilization, like everything the propaganda said didn't exist on this side. Anneliese steps forward toward the woman who taught her to fear this moment and does something no one expected. Anneliese wraps her arms around Gisela. No words, just the sound of wool against wool, 2 women breathing in frozen air. The barracks is silent. Herta watches. Brigitte watches. 45 other women watch a 19-year-old embrace the woman who taught her to fear this exact moment. Das sind keine Monster, das sind Menschen. Diese aren't monsters. These are humans. The realization spreads through the room like heat from a fire. Gisela's body shakes, not from cold, from years of belief collapsing in seconds. Anneliese holds tighter. Private Vogt has stopped pretending to write. His clipboard hangs at his side. He's watching like everyone else, his jaw tight, eyes wet. The older nurse, Whitmore called her Patterson, stands near the door. She's seen this before. American POW camps across Europe, the same pattern. Fear, confusion, collapse, and finally this. The breaking point where ideology meets reality. Here's the statistic that explains everything. Post-capture psychological breakdowns among German women, POWs, 12% within 48 hours. Most caused not by mistreatment, by cognitive dissonance. Their minds couldn't process kindness from enemies. Wir wurden angelogen, über alles. We were lied to, about everything. Brigitte says it out loud, no longer a thought, a declaration. Herta picks up her new uniform. The fabric is thick, warm. cleaner than anything she's worn in months. She turns it over in her hands. There's a tag inside the collar, small, white, handwritten in blue ink. Made in Pennsylvania, stay warm. Her throat tightens. Across an ocean, someone sewed this uniform knowing it would clothe an enemy, and still wrote a message of kindness. 1.2 million American women worked in uniform production. 14% included personal notes in POW-destined clothing. Notes for people their propaganda called evil. The gramophone sits silent in the corner, brass horn catching barracks, light. It was threatening 3 hours ago. Now it just looks like what it is, a music player. Gisela pulls back from Annaliese's embrace. Her face is wet. But something has changed behind her eyes. Ich wusste nicht, dass es so sein könnte. I didn't know it could be like this. Her voice is barely audible. Nurse Patterson speaks from the doorway. Clean clothing, medical treatment, food. In 1 hour. Those are your rights under Geneva Convention. Rights. The word hangs in the air. German women had no rights under German military. They were tools, propaganda assets, bodies to be used and discarded. Here, they're prisoners with rights. Herta looks at the tag again. Stay warm. She starts crying. Hot soup, actual steam rising from metal bowls. Herta stares at hers like it might disappear. Potato, carrot, something that might be beef. More food in one bowl than she's seen in a week. The mess hall is temporary. Canvas walls, wooden tables. But it's warm. A coal stove burns in the corner. Heat radiates across the space. Mehr als unsere eigene Armee uns je gab. More than our own army ever gave us. Brigitte says it between spoonfuls. Not bitter, factual. German military rations for women. 1,800 calories daily when supplies allowed. Supplies rarely allowed. American POW rations. 2,800 calories daily. No exceptions. Annalise eats like she's forgotten how. Bread with actual butter. Powdered milk that tastes like childhood. Her hands are still shaking, but her lips aren't blue anymore. Gisela sits apart, her bowl untouched. She's watching the Americans move through the mess hall, efficient, professional, indifferent to the humanity happening around them. Sie kümmern sich nicht darum, uns zu hassen. They don't bother hating us. The observation escapes her before she can stop it. Private Vogt passes by with a fresh pot of soup. Refills happen without asking. He still doesn't make eye contact, but he makes sure every bowl stays full. Herta notices his boots. Standard issue, same as hers will be tomorrow, same as every prisoner and guard in this camp. No distinction in footwear between captor and captured. The gramophone plays again. Someone moved it to the mess hall. Different record now, something slower, jazz maybe. American music for German prisoners eating American food in an American camp. 6 months from now, 23 women from this barracks will volunteer as hospital aides in American medical facilities. Not because they're forced, because they choose to. Gisela finally picks up her spoon. The first bite takes effort. The second comes easier. Patterson walks through the mess hall, checking bowls, noting who needs seconds. Lights out in 2 hours, she announces. Bunks are assigned. 2 blankets each. 2 blankets. Herta thinks about the winter of '43. Stalingrad. German soldiers freezing in summer uniforms because supply lines collapsed. 1 blanket per 10 men, if that. Unsere eigene Armee hat uns erfrieren lassen. Our own army let us freeze. The thought surfaces without warning. She looks at the Americans around her. Young, tired, doing jobs instead of enacting revenge. Brigitte leans close, whispers, "What happens tomorrow?" Herta doesn't know, but for the first time since capture, she's not afraid to find out. The soup warms her from inside. Herta asks for the record. It's been 3 weeks since the inspection. The barracks have become routine, medical checks, meals, work details. Almost normal. But the gramophone haunts her. Darf ich es behalten? May I keep it? She asks Private Vogt. He looks at her, really looks, for the first time since that frozen January night. The record? Yes. He doesn't understand why. Neither does she, exactly. But the music was playing when everything she believed collapsed. The swing rhythm was the backdrop to her world ending and beginning again. Vogt shrugs. I'll ask. 3 days later, he brings her the vinyl. Black, worn, label half-peeled, Glenn Miller Orchestra. In the Mood. Das ist das Lied, bei dem ich aufgehört habe, euch zu fürchten. This is the song that made me stop fearing you. She doesn't say it out loud, but she thinks it every time she touches the record. Here's what happens after. Gisela spends 6 months as a hospital aide, treats American soldiers alongside German POWs, no distinction in care. She never teaches again. But she writes letters to every school she visited, corrections to every lie she told. Annalisa returns to Germany in 1946, becomes a nurse, specializes in trauma, treats patients who can't explain what happened to them because the truth doesn't match their memories. Brigitte stays in America, marries a supply sergeant from Ohio, 3 children, all speak German and English. She never teaches them fear. And Herta. Herta keeps the record for 40 years. In 1985, a journalist asks her about the war, about capture, about what she expected and what she found. She plays him the record. Das war der Moment, in dem ich wusste, dass alles eine Lüge war. That was the moment I knew everything was a lie. The journalist asks what she means. Herta points at the gramophone, same model. She bought it at an antique store in Frankfurt. They told us you were animals, beasts. That capture meant violation and death. She sets the needle on the vinyl. Swing music fills her small apartment. Instead, they played us music while checking for lice. They gave us blankets. They fed us more than our own army did. She pauses, looks at the spinning record. The propaganda couldn't survive that. None of it could. The journalist writes it down. Dance in your undergarments. 5 words that nearly broke 47 women. But what came after, the music, the inspection, the truth, built something no propaganda could touch.